This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello. It's Friday and blow me down with a feather, Mr. Daws is sitting next to me.
Where did he come from?
I know.
Where's he been?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, where you've been, but Adrian Hobart's done a wonderful job of filling in for you.
He certainly has. Thank you, Adrian. Magnificent work.
Yes.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely to be back. Oh, I've been here, there, and everywhere.
Mostly Eastbourne and Guildford and Newcastle.
Yes, and Sheffield and Malvern, and it's a vagabond of the road. Is the term that they use for actors over the centuries, and I'm beginning to understand what they mean. Less of the vagabond, but certainly lots on the road, and it's great. It's very nice. It's been terrific fun. We've the play's going very well, as you would hope, with it being in Alan Ayckbourn. It's a lovely company, and but it's still a strange life. And the older you get, you're far too young to fully understand this, he said patronisingly. But the life on the road gets a little bit tougher. You're used to your home comforts a bit more when you get to my age, and so the sacrifices you make seem a little more than once they were when you were a young blood full of enthusiasm or whatever. But it's I'm not complaining. I absolutely adore it. The audience has been smashing, and Mr. Ayckbourn is at his sparkling best as ever. So yes, it's nice to be back here with a nice cup of coffee though.
Yes.
In the studio.
Yes.
With me old mucker.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to have you back. I completely understand the home comforts thing, and as you know, I am significantly younger than you. But I don't even like going to London for the day. Never mind away on tour for.
Well, you say that. I've seen you with your father in London. I think you sort of say, "Oh, we're on a historical walk," which seems to go from one historical pub to the other. I can't remember not seeing a smile on your face during that pub crawl.
Well, if there are pubs involved, then that's a different matter, of course.
Okay.
But I've been having
nervous laugh there. Did you?
Yeah, very nervous, very nervous. I've been having a look at the news this week, and I saw that James Ellroy's been gobbing off.
Oh,
there's a lovely picture of him here in this article, which I've printed out. And you can see him kind of pointing at the camera with a very stern look on his face. Of course, that's not at all posed.
No, it's not at all.
That's how he answered the door.
It's very natural, actually.
Yeah.
You've got that sort of look as well. Less
bald?
aggressive. oh, yes, that one it is. I was trying to figure it out. Yes.
Bald and dreadful taste in shirts.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yes, he. The article says James Ellroy is adamant, as he often is. That's one word. He said, "I don't talk about the present or answer any question about the present time under any circumstances. I don't write about it and I don't talk about it." The article continues, 2 minutes into an interview with AFP in Paris, the veins on his bald pate?
Bald pate, yes.
Bald pate are bulging and he is threatening to walk out. He then went on to quote Mussolini.
As you do.
And then said, "I'm an original," which, yeah, not wrong. He says, "I've merged the crime novel, the historical novel, and the political novel. That may be my great achievement. I created a new genre. There is no heir. There are no antecedents. I am an original, and nobody is going to do what I do." He also then went on to say he doesn't read any of his contemporaries, doesn't have a TV either.
Well, it's right. It's a bit of a shame that he has to say it, he's an extraordinary writer, one of the greats, absolutely. But and his book, what's his 10 points for writers or whatever it is I've read a couple of times, which is a very succinct guide to people setting out on writing, how to avoid cliches and many other things. So,
what is it with bald writers being gobby and succinct?
Well, do you know what? I'm just greatly relieved sitting here knowing that it's not just you. That Mr. E is sort of gobbing off. Was that in Paris, did you say?
So it's AFP in Paris.
Oh,
yes.
AFP in Paris. Well, there we are. I mean, there we are. How old is he? I think he must be in his 70s now. Full of wisdom and still full of rage.
This is one of these interesting things, isn't it? It doesn't actually say. I mean, if this was an article about a female author or a female of any type, they would say so and so, aged X of, who came in wearing a. But obviously because he's a male writer, they don't
he's
feel
he's
that's
wearing a very
relevant.
flowery shirt in that photograph you're holding of him.
He is.
But well, anyway, that's an interesting article. I'm just trying to let it sink in and figure out what it means. I mean, basically he's saying I'm great, which we all know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to be great, and I've managed to do this, and this, combine genres into. What, is there a specific book that he's done that in? Must be. Or books or series?
I don't think he was specific, no. I just thought it was worthy of mention. We were a bit thin on the ground for news this week.
Oh, well, you say, I'm here. Well, I'll tell you what, I picked up a book. Where did I get this one? I got this when I was in Newcastle. Newcastle! It's fantastic. I've never been to Newcastle before.
Have you not?
No, I've been past it in the train, I've been past it in the car, and I've never been. Never been. And everyone I've ever spoken to who's been there have said, oh, you're missing a treat. Well, it's a splendid city, and we had a great week at possibly one of the most beautiful theatres in the world, the Theatre Royal in Newcastle. And everything anyone had ever said to me about Newcastle, about the friendliness, the welcome, the warmth,
the beer,
is absolutely true. The beer, the pubs, was absolutely true. It was absolutely great. I was there for the lights switching on, the Christmas lights switching on, which was absolutely splendid. And while I was there, I wandered into a bookshop, and this caught my eye. Now, many of you will probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but you take famous crime writers such as B.A. Paris, Claire Mackintosh, Holly Brown, and Sophie Hannah, all outstanding in their own particular areas of crime fiction, and terrific writers, but they've written a book betwixt them. And it's called The Understudy, which is probably what caught my eye, being sort of in a play at the moment. And I've just read it. It's a smashing book, and 4 writers writing one novel together. Now, you've just experienced something like that with your book, where you've been writing with someone else. How was that, by the way? You've been very, very, very creative, very positive experience.
Yeah. The book came out on the 5th of November, and it's been doing very well. Yeah, for a first in series, it's been very good. We're currently hard at work on the second. It's a very different process. In fact, the process of book 2 is different from the process of book 1. We were kind of finding our feet with that and bouncing things back and forth, and we had to do, as I mentioned before, had to rewrite bits because real world events overtook us on a number of occasions.
Well, that's always a problem with writing, isn't
real
it?
life became stranger than fiction. But we got there. We're planning assiduously book 2 and cracking on with that. So all a very positive experience.
Well, that's good. Well, I haven't spoken to any of these fine authors about their experience on this, but the book is in my hand, and as I say, it's called The Understudy. I'll tell you what it's about. On the back it says this: how far would you go to protect your daughter? Carolyn, Bronnie, Elise and Kendall are bound together by one thing. Their 4 daughters are best friends at the highly competitive Orla Flynn Academy for the Performing Arts. Imogen Curwood is a new girl at the academy, and her behaviour is odd from the start. On the day she arrives, bad things start to happen. As one threatening incident follows another, the 4 mothers begin to ask themselves, are their girls in danger? When an attempted murder rocks the school, Imogen is pleased to report that she has an alibi. If she isn't the guilty party, someone else must be. Carolyn, Bronnie, Elise and Kendall are determined to uncover the truth and protect their daughters. But as they prepare to risk their own... I'll just take a run at that again. But are they prepared to risk their own secrets being exposed? The Understudy is the outstanding new novel from 4 masters of suspense, and it's great. I mean, they all contribute chapter by chapter each, and it sounds a bit as Woolworths used to promote, pick and mix. But it is pick and mix at its best, and it's they've written a very fine and suspenseful novel, and I recommend it wholeheartedly. They managed to sort of keep their individual styles because they're writing from each parent's point of view, so they have their particular seam to mine, but it melds together incredibly well. A terrific book, and I think this may be the start of something new. It's not just a collaboration between one or two writers, a collaboration between four.
Well, anything that means I only have to do a quarter of the amount of work is a good thing in my view.
Well, that's a very good. Yes, okay. So there we are. My next book, I'm going to be collaborating with 16 other writers, and
taking a 16th of the royalty.
Imagine
well.
all your energies would then go into organising the whole thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Coming in, all that. So it all adds up to pretty much the same amount of work.
And you take a big pay cut as well because you're sharing it.
Oh yes, I hadn't thought of that. But anyway, so that is The Understudy. I'm sure it is available on what platform would you recommend it to be available to be bought from?
You could probably have a go at Kobo.
Yep, that's Kobo, isn't it?
Yes. Kobo.com. If you're new to Kobo, if you've not bought a book from them before, then enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout. They'll give you 90% off of that book or any other that you fancy getting hold of. And if you go through the link in the show notes, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I think, of books available for you to buy with 40% off for life using the promo code PARTNERS. Let's talk about sex, Bob.
Again?
Yes. This is the Bad Sex Award, which isn't something your wife set up. This is the news that the 5 finalists for the annual Bad Sex in Fiction Award have been revealed. And on it is a crime novelist this year, British crime novelist John Harvey. His book Pax is not actually a crime novel, must just mention that. It's a kind of historical literary fiction with links to the art world, in fact. Nominations are still being accepted and the winner is going to be announced on the 2nd of December. Bad Sex in Fiction Award was established in 1993 with the hopes of weeding out, and I quote, poorly written, perfunctory or redundant passages of sexual description in modern fiction.
Absolutely devastating that must be.
Well, it's about to get even more devastating because I have that passage from John Harvey's book Pax, which apparently fits a description of poorly written, perfunctory and redundant passages of sexual description. And if you've got your glasses on, Bob, I'm actually going to ask you to read this out.
Okay. Try not to get too excited.
There we are.
Okay.
This is Pax by John Harvey from here.
And it's, oh my God, what does that say at the top there? Loving her bush.
Yeah, we'll get to that bit.
Pax by John Harvey. Okay. She gave a yet deeper moaning sigh. Like breathing in, he saw the word he had said shiver and expand inside her. Her arms moved now and flexed. Out of here, Venus de Milo. He watched the death life fill her growingly. She grabbed and caressed him with more muscle, more zest than ever before. Her long, lean arms were spider arms while her kisses roved and dug. I see it, he said. You are the female praying mantis devouring her mate. I am. You are. I shall eat every shred of you. Mouthful by mouthful. Exactly. Ah, but boy, you taste good. She licked her lips and pulled him close. But now he was clasping too. It was a kind of slow wrestling. They were knitting each other into a loose slipping knot. He was upside down over her, loving her bush, and lick-kissing like eating her inner thighs, till at last they loved fully, and later lay back. She did not chatter. Their arms stirred in a luxurious desultory twining.
That was from Pax by John Harvey, which has...
And that was thrown on me, by the way, so any strange inflections, I hadn't seen that before. But,
that was the first you knew of it. So yeah, that's one of the nominations for the Bad Sex in Fiction Award, quite rightly.
Sex exhausting when you're having to read it out loud.
I know. The winner, actually, by the time we go to air, will have been announced on December the 2nd.
Well, that's pretty good.
That might have been the winner, for all we know.
Yeah. I mean, lots of licking and twining and knitting, apparently, which is something I hadn't really considered to be,
I thought of bringing knitting into the bedroom,
sort of an image of someone sort of knitting a scarf, or maybe sort of in the throes of passion working on a macrame owl. So there we are. That's really. I mean, I get by. I had a friend of mine who lives in Spain, who's Danish. I know, and he read Poison Rock. And The Rock, and he came back. He was very complimentary, which was very sweet of him, because he's a friend, and that's what I would expect. Not interested in honesty. And he said, "No, I'm very, very good." He said, "But you need to have some sex in your books." And I don't have any sex in my books. I have flirtations, but I don't have any sex. And it sort of, I worried about this for a while, that there isn't really any sex in my book. He said if you need, in the Danish accent, he said, "Oh no, you definitely need some sex in your books." So I mean, that's something to work on. Maybe one day I too can end up on that list with my knitting, twining, and and inner thigh licking.
Well. Gives us something to look forward to next year, I suppose.
God, what a racy episode!
I know.
I've got my blood pressure tablets now.
Well, back to murder. Netflix's latest film, The Irishman, takes a stab at a dramatised true crime story that captivated America. It follows the involvement of Frank Sheeran with a crime family run by Jimmy Hoffa, who was the former president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Union. The series is based on the book by Charles Brandt called I Heard You Paint Houses. The book was primarily Frank Sheeran's explanations. So it says here, some of the stories may have been skewed or changed for dramatic purposes. And many of Sheeran's claims in the book remain unproven, and some critics feel he overstated his involvement in Hoffa's death. Probably worth adding that before he died, in 2003, Frank Sheeran actually claimed to have knowledge of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. So he might not be the most reliable witness.
Or narrator.
Yes, exactly. Although he took ownership for the crime, for the murder of Jimmy Hoffa, there are many theories that claim Sheeran didn't actually kill him. According to the FBI, 14 people have claimed to be responsible for killing the crime boss.
It's like Murder on the Orient Express.
It is, yes. No, I'm Spartacus. So yeah, that's The Irishman, which is the new film coming to Netflix, which does sound very interesting.
I'm really looking forward to seeing those. I mean, look, can you just look at the cast? I mean, it's absolutely De Niro, Pesci, the great Pacino, and they've got all Scorsese's wonderful rep. There's Harvey Keitel, the great Harvey Keitel, a wonderful actor, which no one in this country, unless they're real cinema lovers, will know. They'll probably just know him from the gangster from those insurance ads.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Whatever it is, Direct Line, is it? Where he turns up, I mean, you know, oh gosh. So that was his tax bill paid for. I've no doubt, but he's a wonderful
if Kevin
actor.
Bacon can do ads,
If Kevin Bacon, well, that's what happens. You see, they get a massive amount of money for these ads, and they come over and do them, and no one in their own country knows. And it doesn't affect their international standing as stars of film and television. So you know, I can understand it absolutely. I do the same. If someone out there, one of our listeners in Slovakia, has any contacts, very happy to pop over and earn a fortune selling sliced bread or washing up liquid. I'm very good with a pair of marigolds on. I give some of my finest performances. So there we are. That'd be lovely trying to do a Kevin Bacon in Slovakia.
Yes.
I mean, I'm more portly and slightly balder.
Yes, without the dancing.
Definitely without the dancing. Strictly no dancing. Right. So.
Did you have something you wanted to?
Because I've been commuting this week, which is lovely because I can get to sleep in my own bed and be with my family, which is absolutely great. But what happens is, of course, I get in late and I'm as high as a kite because I've just come off the stage and. But I'm suitably worn out by actually spending hours on the M25. So I get in and I have a little libation and I watch some television. And the last couple of nights, I've been drawn to, and I don't usually do this, and I've done a bit on Partners in Crime, where I was saying, the true life crime dramas and documentaries. I mean, they're very, they proliferate everywhere, and I sort of some of them are very good, and a lot of them are very poor. But I started watching one which is on the new Sky Crime channel. So if you are a true crime lover, you will know that already. Certainly in the UK. I don't know whether its platform spreads to the States and other parts of the world and Canada, but who knows? Maybe it does. But I've started watching a documentary called The Disappearance of Susan Cox Powell, which is obviously based on a real case. And just to sum it up very quickly, Jeff Robson in Culture says this about it. There is no shortage of true crime documentaries on the schedules, but Sky Crime, a new channel launched last month to show high quality examples of the genre from channels such as HBO and Oxygen, is already making its presence felt, and The Disappearance of Susan Cox Powell was a particularly in-depth analysis of a particularly tragic case. In the first two feature-length programmes, investigative journalist Stephanie Bauer told the story of Susan Cox Powell, who disappeared from her home in Utah in December 2009, aged 28. Suspicion immediately fell on her husband Josh, who went missing with their two young sons on the same night, but turned up a day later claiming to have taken the boys on a camping trip after a row. Police investigations discovered that behind the outward image of a happy young couple was a darker reality. Their 8-year marriage was in difficulties, and Susan's family were troubled by what they saw as Josh's controlling attitude. His behaviour during and after initial interviews only deepened detectives' suspicions, but mysterious gaps in the cell phone records of both Josh and his father, Stephen, led them in a new direction. It's fascinating and very disturbing because obviously there's this poor woman was abducted, and although I haven't finished it quite, I've got another 20 minutes to go because I had to go to bed last night. I'd had a Horlicks and the old eyelids started to droop. So I don't know what happened at the very end, but what I have seen is it's an extraordinary family. The husband, Josh's father, was totally obsessed with his daughter-in-law, and some of the home videos and movies that he made, just following her around and talking to camera, some of the most disturbing, obsessional pieces of television I've ever seen. So it's very disturbing, but it's a well-made documentary. So I would recommend that to anyone who has an appetite for such things. On Sky Crime, The Disappearance of Susan Cox Powell.
Good. Well, if you like podcasts, and we can only presume you do, because if you don't, you're in the wrong place. You might like to know that Kevin Pollock and Patton Oswalt are joining the second season of the fictional true crime podcast. Just bear that in mind. Fictional true crime, Angel of Vine, which is a kind of a... it's described here, quite interesting actually. It's a genre-bending true crime found footage audio drama, told mostly in flashbacks, and all of season 1 is available to stream now. So it's essentially a kind of an audio Blair Witch true crime, if that makes sense.
It's true crime, but it's also fictionalised.
Yes.
I mean, it's a sort of an audio version of what do they do? Reconstructions and things like that, or is it actually dramatised by a dramatist?
It is, yes. Forbes have an article in which they say the setup begins in modern times as the family of LA detective Hank Briggs inherits his house after his death, and discovers stacks and stacks of tapes in the attic that he secretly recorded during his investigation into the fictional Angel of Vine case from 1950s Hollywood, which in the story is a world famous murder case. Of course, it's not an actual real one. The story is picked up by a journalist named Oscar Simons, who acts as the host of the podcast, playing for his audience the story that he's piecing together from those tapes and other news media of the time. It's a fascinating concept, actually.
Sounds like a fascinating idea. A sort of faction, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
so a true crime podcast, which isn't actually of a true crime. It's a fictional crime, but presented as a true crime podcast. It's we talk lots on this podcast about the blending of facts and fiction. That's another way of doing it, isn't it?
That is a hell of a blend.
So yeah, that's Angel of Vine.
Well, that's and with Kevin Pollak. You see, I hadn't seen Kevin Pollak for years, and people I think sort of was aware of him as what's that wonderful film with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson? You want the truth, you can't handle the truth. It's gone.
No idea.
No idea, but he was in that. But he turned up recently in Billions, if anyone watches that, giving an extraordinarily fine performance, as you'd expect. So it's nice to see Kevin Pollak.
Well, there's
or hear him.
It's a star-studded cast. It's got Alfred Molina.
Fantastic.
Joe Manganiello. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know, but he's in it anyway. This one there.
That's Joe. No,
Joe, not Joe. Yeah, he plays the lead anyway. Good old Joe. The official synopsis of the first season is this: the police gave up with no leads, and the case would never be closed, or would it? Ex-cop and private detective Hank Briggs may have solved the case, but he never told a soul. It's up to Oscar to search through Hank's mountain of tapes and clues from more than 60 years ago to uncover the killer. That's Angel of Vine. Season 2 is coming in the spring, so why not catch up now with Season 1? It sounds like a fantastic podcast. Maybe put that on after this.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm gonna listen to it.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, well, I'm dry. I'm dry, yes. I've got another one to hold back for next week. I like to keep one in my arsenal just in case we run perilously short of the 30 minutes. You're giggling away.
Sorry,
you know,
I misheard that.
You know how much I like to land around the 30-minute mark. It's a bit like when you're kind of paragliding and you've got to aim for that X in the middle of the field. I try and get as close as I can.
It's a little, I have to say, listeners throughout the world, it's one of those what I call Croft OCD moments. I really, he is quite particular, and he's actually, even as I talk, he's listening to what I'm saying, but he's actually watching the clock,
counting down. It's also completely pointless because this is a podcast that we privately fund and produce and put out there, and nobody's telling us it's got to be 30 minutes. But there's no reason we picked 30 minutes other than we just liked it and it felt around natural. Maybe it's a throwback to my radio days. I don't know. I've got to finish on the top of the hour.
I think so. I mean, there are lots of reports that people actually don't sort of will listen up to a certain length of time, and I think we've decided
usually until we start talking.
Yes, and then they stop after 5 seconds usually. But it's interesting. Well, it's been very pleasant being back here. As you'll just tell me when I have to stop talking.
Yeah, well,
thank you. It's been very pleasant being back with Partners in Crime, and I'm going to be back now well into the new year, which is great. Hopefully we'll have a little Christmas special coming up in the next couple of weeks because it's Christmas, and
then we've got our birthday at the end of January.
Oh yes,
we'll be two
at the end
of January, which will be nice.
Which means we're walking, which is nice, if not entirely coherent speech wise, but we're learning the language of podcasting as we go along, and enjoying every minute of it. So thanks very much for listening. We're up to 28 minutes. You've got 2 minutes. Do you want to do a tap dance?
All right. No, I was just going to mention the fact that we're hoping to do another live episode for our birthday. I know we had one for our first birthday, and that was live on YouTube and Facebook. The video was live, and the podcast went up a few days later. This time we're hoping to broadcast the whole thing live, so you'll be able to hear the audio, watch, do everything completely live. 2020 we're hoping to do some more live events in front of a live studio audience, like we did in Morecambe. So yeah, big plans coming up.
I'll be reporting from a ship crossing the Atlantic.
You will reporting from the Caribbean.
From a segment there, asking people what they read on board ships in the way of crime fiction. So that might be quite interesting. So yeah,
Caribbean Christmas cruise.
Yeah, we've got lots and lots of things lined up for your delectation and delights, or as they say, what larks, Pip. I saw that the other afternoon. David Lean's. I've seen it so many times. Great Expectations. It's just one of my favourite films ever, based on a book, I think.
Yeah.
Who
wrote that one?
I'm not absolutely sure, but let's investigate that. So here we are. It's 29 minutes and 19 seconds.
We've got a theme tune to add on as well, don't forget.
Oh, right. So you're saying this
will...
is the point where you tell me to shut up?
We probably should start heading that way, yes.
Okay.
But looking very much forward to our plans for 2020.
Yeah.
Lots of live stuff, lots of studio audience stuff, lots of new technology and breaking new boundaries. And have you got any tours?
I've got half a tour. And that's it. Then I'm at home, and then I'm writing, and that's it. And
so you're actually back here, like, permanently then?
Yeah, back here permanently. Well, as permanently as an actor's life allows this particular actor to be. But anyway, this is me.
And 2020 was looking so bright.
Shutting up.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.